So I'm a little nervous today about this message because have you read this book? Ever heard of this book, Necessary Endings? One of my all-time favorite books. Some of you know I like to read a lot. This guy is like, he writes something, I like to read it. And I read this about 10 years ago. Necessary Endings, you can see it says the employees, businesses, and relationships that all of us have to give up in order to move forward. So that's the subtitle of the book. And it's really about what the title is. It's about bringing an ending to certain things in your life. There are some things that should end. And I was so moved by what I read 10 years ago, read this book, that I turned it into a message and I taught on it because the principles are so powerful. And after I was done with that sermon, within the next month, 2 families came up and told me they were divorcing their spouse because of that message. And I was heartbroken. And I put that message away and I never talked about it again. Because I don't want that for anyone. I do not want that for anyone. I want to see if there's a way to restore it. And so but the crazy thing is, I live by these principles. The things I learned 10 years ago, I still not only use in my life constantly, I talk to my kids about constantly. They have heard this again and again and again and again. And I'm like, these are really essential and biblical concepts that we have to talk about. So just don't get divorced. If that's where you're at today, you're married, please hold that thought, okay? I really am, it really is important that you think through and hear carefully what I'm saying. So the concepts are really important, and it's really challenging to even have this conversation about an ending because it's almost like it's un-American to have an ending. It's like, we don't end things, right? And last week I talked about resilience and perseverance. And it's like, yeah, we keep going and we don't ever quit and we never surrender. We are unbreakable. And so it's like, wait, and then sometimes you got to end things. It's like, what? That's not Christian. That's not American. We don't end anything. We just keep plowing through. It's like, here's what I want you to understand. What the Bible would teach is that sometimes the wisest choice you can make is to bring an ending to something. Sometimes, if you've heard me at all this year, you know that I am really, really passionate right now about doing the will of God. It's been our theme all year. We do the will of God. And sometimes the will of God is for you to bring an ending to something in your life. To make something end. And that, again, doesn't even sound Christian to a lot of Christians. It's like, are you serious? That's not in the Bible. It's like, well, hold that thought. I think I can show you a lot about what the Bible has to say about this. But it's really challenging. But the truth is this. Some of you, in order for your life to get better, you need to quit believing anything your boss or manager says to you. You need to quit that. Because you keep believing them every single time. And you need to quit. Because it's not going to be true. Some of you need to quit believing someone else's promise that they're about to change. This is it. This is the time. I'm really going to get it different now. I'm going to be different now. I'm going to make, right? You need to quit that. Because you keep believing it and it's not true. Some of you need to quit believing that someone you love isn't addicted. Because they keep telling you they're going to stop and they're just about ready to stop and they can stop any time and they can do this, and you need to quit believing that. Because they are addicted. And some of you need to quit believing things that are absolutely lies. They are not true. And they keep getting you every time. Every time you keep believing it and you keep going back. And some of you need to bring some kind of ending to an unhealthy relationship that is really damaging you today. So to think about this and to make this really practical for you, I want you to think about areas of your life or relationships in your life that are really frustrating for you right now. Where are you most frustrated? Because that'll help you think about where God might be prompting you to bring an ending to something. So we're in this series called Running on Empty. In America right now, oh my goodness, there's so much conversation about mental health issues. I heard it at least twice last week on the news. At least twice. People are falling apart in America. And there are a lot of reasons for that. COVID didn't cause it. COVID just accelerated it. And part of why we fall apart is because we don't understand what the Bible clearly teaches about endings. And what I want to show you today is this. How do you know when it's time to quit? How do you know when God might be saying to you, let's bring an ending to this now? How do you know that? This is essential, because if you keep hanging on when you shouldn't be hanging on, you should be making a new change, you will stress yourself out to no end. So I want to show you this. I want to ask you to open your program, and inside you'll find these notes. Can I ask you to grab your notes, take them out and grab a pen, something to write with. And of course, welcome to all of you who are watching online. So good to hear from you. Love it when people write. So again, you can send me emails at brianrudesill@gmail.com. So glad to hear from you too, and welcome. If you're watching on our website at pennychurchlife.com, you know the notes are right there, so I really want to encourage you to write some of these things down today. They are that important in my mind. So let's jump right into this. The first thing that has to happen, if you want to know when it's time to quit, first you have to normalize endings. And this is, again, just not what we do in America, but you need to normalize endings. Things end. That's normal. I read years ago one of those advice columns where people write in and say, hey, I need some help. Here's what I read. Okay, now you think if this was your friend and they asked you this, told you this scenario, what would you say to them? Okay, here's what they wrote. She said, this woman wrote in and said, I think my boyfriend wants to cheat on me, if he hasn't already. We've been living together for 3 years. He left his laptop open recently, and I saw that he was on a dating site. He has his own profile, and the profile picture that he has up there is one that I took of him when we were on vacation together in Las Vegas. And she said, I'm afraid if I say anything, the situation will become real and ruin our relationship. Okay, you're her friend. What do you say, right? Isn't it amazing that someone had to ask that question? I mean, isn't it clear to all of you? It's pretty clear to all of you, right? I mean, I think that's what we're all like, why asking? Why asking, right? But isn't it true? Isn't it true? All of you know that you've watched people just like this who could not bring an ending to an unhealthy relationship, haven't you? I mean, I knew this woman who was married to this guy who cheated on her all the time with different women, and she never brought an ending to it. She was heartbroken, devastated, horrible pain, and couldn't bring an ending, right? How many people do you know who are absolutely sick and miserable every single day they go to the office or to go to their job, and they hate it, and they never bring an ending? They never end, they're complaining about it either. It's like, pick one or the other. Either end your complaining or end your job, but don't keep both going. I mean, right? Why do we do this? Why do we just keep going and going and going and going? Well, that's a really important question to answer. And when I really thought about it a lot, if I were putting one word up here to kind of summarize why most people stay, it's because of fear, right? It's scary. I mean, if you're in a job that's bad, you're scared about what the next job will be, and you're scared whether you'll be able to do the job, right? And you're scared that what if you have a worse boss than what you got now? And what if you get in there and you find out you're not as good at that, and then they fire you and you have no job? And so there's so much fear wrapped up in our changes, right? Or that girl, it's like, what if I confront him and it's not true? It's like, what? What do you think, he's an undercover FBI agent infiltrating dating websites? I mean, what the heck? There's no logical reason why he is his own profile and is hunting. But we're afraid, right? What if he leaves me then? I mean, she even said it. She said, I'm afraid to say anything because the situation will become real and ruin our relationship. She's afraid. And of course, if she was my daughter, I'd be saying, the relationship's already ruined. And it's already real. You've just put your head in the sand and are pretending like it isn't actually happening. And you need to bring an ending to that. Right? Fear is a big thing. And I'm not trying to dismiss this, how powerful fear is. I mean, I've struggled with bringing an ending because of fear for a long time. Took counseling for years to try and sort some of this out. I hired a guy once, and it was a terrible hire. I had to confront him over and over and over and over and over again. And like 9 months into the hire, I was sitting in my office and I had another confrontation meeting with him, and I just explained what he'd done wrong, and he burst into tears. He started crying and crying and crying. He's like, I bet you regret the day you hired me. And I was like, at that point, I didn't. 6 months later, I sure did. Because it was the exact same conversation for the first, you know how long it took me before I made a decision? 3 years. I had the same conversations for 3 years before I finally said enough. And it was super hard for me to bring that ending. I mean, I really was a mess, and it took years and years to realize that for me, the fear is that if I bring an ending like to that it says something about me, not that I failed in a hiring, but that I am a failure. Well, you personalize your failures, you're really going to be afraid to bring an ending to anything. So it was devastating to me to end it. I wish somebody years and years ago could have gotten in a time machine and gone back and explained to young Brian that this is just the truth, that endings are a normal part of life. Endings are a normal part of life. Isn't that true? Endings are a normal part of life. Things end all the time. So how do you know when it's time to actually bring some kind of ending? Well, it's interesting. In the book, he explains the concept of gardening. Any of you love gardener? Any of you people who just love gardening? Maybe you got rose bushes or fruit trees or things like that. And you understand. Oh, let me show you the verse, though, that explains this, and then I'll back up to that. In Ecclesiastes, look at this. It says, there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. And then look at what he says. Look what the Bible says. There's a time to be born and a time to die. That's an ending, right? There's a time to plant and a time to uproot. Uprooting is an ending. There's a time to tear down. Is that an ending? It's an ending. There's a time to build. There's a time to keep, and there's a time to do what? How many of us don't need to go and throw some stuff away, right? There's an ending. I used to love this. I don't want it anymore. I need to get it to Goodwill or the trash or wherever it needs to go because I don't want it anymore. The Bible says just this clearly, there's endings. Things end. So how do you know when it's time to end? Well, again, if you're a gardener, if someone who really loves working with like fruit trees or rose bushes or things like that, you understand this. I do not. I can kill any plant you give me, and it won't even take me long. I've had people hand me stuff. It's like, oh, nobody can kill this. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can. And I don't try to. I really like plants. Doesn't matter. I'm doing lots of stuff wrong, usually overwatering. It's like, don't they need more? And down they go. So anyway, for people who know this, they said that it's really important for you to prune for 3 reasons. For instance, if you have a fruit tree, you've got to prune it so that because the tree could be producing more buds than it can sustain. Okay? So you've got to get rid of some so that it can pour more life into the other ones. Okay? Makes sense to me. Not that I know how to do it, but it makes sense. Then they said the other time you have to prune is if some of the branches or buds are sick. So you cut the unhealthy ones off. Okay? And then the third time is obvious if something's dead on the tree. Cut the dead stuff off, right? That all makes sense. All makes sense here too. Not that I can do it. So this is how it translates into our lives. So 3 things. Prune when you have more than you can sustain. You have to get rid of some things when you have more than you can sustain. And I want to ask you, are you too busy today? This world will always give you more than you can keep up with. Isn't that true? Always. So you need to ask the question, am I too busy? Because you may need to prune something. It may be time to bring an ending to some activity in your life. The second time when you have to prune is when you're in unhealthy relationships. Like when a branch has some sickness on it, you take that off so that the rest of it can be healthy. And some of you are being drugged down because of some unhealthy people in your life. They are making you sick. Their sickness is making you sick. And then the third time you prune is the dead stuff. And I want to ask you, what isn't working in your life anymore? What isn't working in your life anymore? So these are times when the Bible would say, yeah, you need to think about what do you need to bring an ending to. So, and again, that only comes when you've normalized endings. So here's the saying in my head that I have. All my life, there will be things coming to an end. There's a season for everything, like the verse says. All my life, things will be coming to an end. So how easy is it for you to say that sentence in your mind? How easy is it for you to say that sentence in your mind? All my life there will be things that come to an end. Friendships that come to an end. They used to be close and now they're not. Work that comes to an end. You used to do this job, now you don't. Relationships that used to be close to and you bring an ending to them. Okay? So now, the next part is essential. Once you internalize the truth that things come to an end, then you can do this one. Now you have to distinguish between what is a wish and what is a hope. And this is what my kids have heard me say over and over and over again. I can't tell you how grateful I am to Dr. Cloud for giving me the language on this one to understand the difference between a wish and a hope. Because people hang on when they confuse those two, and they shouldn't be hanging on anymore. So let me explain this. If I were to ask you, just think in your own mind, don't say it out loud, what are the most powerful, fastest growing companies in America today? Can you think of like names, the names of some company. And I bet some of you got something in the mail in the last few weeks from one of the fastest growing, most powerful companies on the planet. Amazon, right? Right? This is like taking over the world. But what's so fascinating about the history of Amazon, founded in 1994, do you know how long it took before Amazon made $1 in profit? 7 years. 7 years before they made any money at all. Can you imagine you're one of the investors who got out after year 6? Right? You know how sick you feel today? Because you're doing the math in your head about how many zillions you lost. Zillions! If you'd have just hung on one more year. So do you see why it is essential that you know when to hold on and when to let go? Because everybody who let go before 2001 is kicking themselves to this day. Because they let go too early. So how do you know? How do you know? So you've got to understand this. This is why this is so important. Hope is different than a wish. You get the idea of a wish. A wish is really just based on one thing. It's a desire for something to occur. And so it's like wishing upon a star. You ever do that when you're a kid? I remember there was a kid looking out the window and wishing on a star for something to happen. Oh, God, or the heavens, I want Wendy Bierbauer to like me, please, all right? So you wish, you make a wish, or you throw a penny in the wishing well, right? Because you wish for something to happen. That's a wish. And if all you have is a wish, it's time to make an ending. Something's got to change. Hope is different. Hope has this second element to it. There's a reason for believing that something in the future will happen. So here's the key thing. If there are no reasons for believing that something in the future is going to happen, you only have a wish and you need to change. But if there are legitimate reasons for something to be different, now you can hold on. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you get this great idea and you start a business and you have such a great business plan, you go to the bank and the bank loans you $500,000 to start your business. And it's awesome. For the first 3 years, you're like having fun, doing all this stuff, but you're not making any money. Zero return on investment. And after 3 years, you've blown all of your initial investment. 500,000 is gone. And so you need more money from the bank to keep going. And so you go into the bank and you sit down and say, I need a loan. Can I please have another $500,000? The banker is going to say, why? Right? They're not just going to say, sure. They're going to say, why should I give you more money? And then you have two possible responses. Let's say you're like, well, I am going to work so hard this year. This year, I'm going to really do good. I'm going to just really, really try hard. Right? That person getting the loan? No shot. Just a wish, just the desire. There's no reason for hoping that anything's going to be different. But let's say that the second person comes in and says, and the banker says, why should I loan you money? And they say this, well, I just got the rights to operate in 12 new regions. I just hired a brand new seasoned sales manager. I also got a contract to be one of the suppliers for the NFL, and Yahoo is putting me on their homepage. Now, does the banker have objective reasons to think, oh, okay, yeah, you can have some more money now? Do you hear the difference? One is just a wish. Well, I wish things would get better. And some of you, this is all you have. I wish things with my kids were a little better. Wish my manager was better. Wish my job was better. Wish my finances were better. But you have no objective reasons to think anything is going to change. And when you don't have that, then you have to change your tactics. Now, the tricky thing about this is, how do you know how to evaluate a person? Like that banker scenario, that's pretty easy, right? You, as a banker, if you weren't even a banker, you could make that decision. No to the first guy, yes to the second. Because there are reasons. But how do you know how to evaluate a person? How do you know when it's time to bring an ending to a relationship? 3 really important questions to answer. First, what does their past behavior suggest? What does their past behavior suggest? Do you know that past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior? I, for years and years and years, used to run assessment centers for church planters. So what this meant is I'd go all over the nation and churches would send a couple or an individual that they said, this person wants to start a church for our religious organization. And I ran a team of people and we would evaluate them. So do you know what it's like to start a church? You start a church, the day you go to that town, there's nothing. There's no kids ministry, there's no nursery, no greeters, no financial systems in place, no membership class, nothing. And then you get there and you have to start everything. Everything that exists, you have to start. So that tells you a little bit about the competencies of the person who's going to be good at church planting, right? They better be starters. They better have a whole track record of their life of starting. I can't tell you how many times we would evaluate people who came to start a church and you'd ask them past behavioral questions. You're like, well, tell me about the last 5 things you started. And they're like, oh, I hate starting things. I'll never start anything. I don't like it. And they can't give you any facts about things they start. So what does that tell you? Past behavior, best indication of a future behavior. You just have to believe that. What does their past behavior tell you? Second, and this is really important, are there reasons to believe they will change? You have to answer this question. It may be of the 3, I'm going to give you the most important. What are the reasons to believe that they're going to change? And I want you to, after you write that down, I want you to flip your notes over. On the back, I put all kinds of questions. So the top section, indications of past behavior, here's some questions you can ask. But that second section, signs that change is likely to happen. Have they joined a proven change process? Like, for instance, ever heard of Alcoholics Anonymous? So if somebody who's an alcoholic in your life is really hurting you again and again and again, and they say, and they come to you and they say, I want you to trust me again, and you say, why should I trust you? They say, I joined AA 3 weeks ago. I go to 3 meetings a week. I've got a sponsor that I check in with daily. I've got the book. I'm already a third of the way through the book. I've started, and they start detailing out all. And I went to my doctor. He gave me the medicine. You've heard of this medicine that if you take this medicine, and then if you drink alcohol, it makes you physically sick. He said, I'm on that medicine. So it's like, okay. Now, is there a reason for hope in that situation? They've added structure to their life that says, okay, yeah, this is possible. But if they come to you and they're like, yeah, I want you to trust me. This time, I'm really serious about quitting drinking. All right, so what are you doing? Well, I'm just quitting. There's no reason for hope there. There's no reason for hope. Because then you go back to the first question, was their past behavior indicate? Well, that they're going to fall off the wagon, right? And if they haven't done the second one, they haven't given you any reason to believe that this change is going to be ongoing, you have no reason for hope. So there has to be a reason to believe that the change is going to take this time. Are they going to see a counselor? Have they joined a support group? What are they doing? That's such an important question. And then the third one is this the type of person I even should keep trusting? This is really hard. I mean, especially when you're talking about family members. Oh boy. You're talking about really painful stuff here. Is this the type of person I should even keep trusting? And the Bible says there really kind of breaks it into three broad categories. And I've talked about this before in the past. The Bible would say there are wise people and foolish people and evil people. And the tricky thing about this, it's true for all of us. All of us can kind of waver between these categories. And I define an evil person as someone who hurts somebody else on purpose. So if you're going to tell me you never hurt someone on purpose, wow, you're amazing. But the truth is all of us at times do. We lose our cool, we lose our temper, we are passive aggressive. There are different ways we hurt people on purpose. And so all of us can waver through, but what the Bible's talking about is patterns of behavior. That you have a foolish person who's repeatedly foolish. One of the key marks of a foolish person is they never listen to anybody else but themselves. You got anyone like that in your life? They take no advice from anybody? Their way or the highway? Do you know what the Bible says then about that? Look at this. Wise friends make you wise, but you, look what you do. You hurt yourself by going around with fools. Are you hurting yourself today? Because you can't look honestly at the relationships that you actually are in. I mean, it's easy for us to listen to that opening letter from that girl and say, man, what's she doing? You found his dating profile. For goodness sakes, make an ending. But it's one thing to actually say that and then to look in our own relationships and see there are people who hurt us over and over again and we haven't changed anything. It's hard to do, isn't it? It's hard to do. On the back, I put a whole section about distinguishing between those three different kinds of people and what to do with each of them. But here's what I want, okay? I want you to understand this. So, endings are necessary, and they're a normal part of life. I mean, we someday want winter to come to an end in Wisconsin, right? We someday want winter to end. Seasons end. Someday it will. Middle of July, August, who knows? But it's going to come to an end, right? So things end. Things end. And we need to know when it's time to persevere because there's real reasons for hope and when it's time to bring an ending. Some of you, I know, are sitting here listening to me going, oh, drat. I'm in a relationship. I'm in a job. I'm in a situation where I need to bring some kind of ending. Something needs to change. Then this is so important that you write this down. Again, if you don't have that second one, reasons for believing that something is be different, then you do this. You change tactics. Number 3. By the way, those two things are on the back of your notes at the bottom, the two elements of hope. So is there a desire to change and reasons to believe that that change is going to happen? But you really need to understand that what the Bible would say then is now you need to change tactics. You need to change the tactics that have brought you to this point. Look at what the Bible says. When you see trouble coming, don't be stupid and walk right into it. Be smart and hide. And every one of you, if you were that friend of that woman who found the dating profile on her boyfriend's, what you would be saying, in essence, is this to her, right? You'd be saying, you'd say it nicer than this, hopefully, but you'd say, don't be stupid and walk right into this. You have to change tactics. This is what he's doing. You didn't make him do it. He chose to do it. So don't you just keep going as is. Take your head out of the sand. Let's look at this. It's going to be painful. But isn't it true? She's going to suffer pain no matter what, right? She's already got pain. She's headed for pain, so it's just a matter of what kind of pain you want. Now, and again, I am not saying end the relationship. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is this, and I want you to write this down. End the way you are approaching these situations. That's what has to end. You need to change your tactics. You need to change your tactics. This isn't okay. And the first part of this, what I'm about to say to you, is one of the hardest things for me to say. Because if you know me, I am like Mr. Positive, Mr. Optimistic, and this is so hard for me to say, but I want you to write it down. You have to get hopeless about what isn't going to work. That's so hard. You have to get hopeless about what isn't going to work. I had a staff member once and discovered that, actually someone told me right away within, again, this one was another 3-year one. Someone told me within the first year that this guy was lying to me. And I'm like, no, no, you just misunderstood. You don't understand the situation. And I defended the person. And then at the 2.5-year point, I discovered, yeah, not telling me the truth. So I changed my tactics. I confronted them. I had them come in. They met with me every single week for a mentoring kind of thing. We went through this leadership book, and I was trying to develop some of the core competencies that were missing, and obviously I don't want to be lied to. And so that went on for a little while, and then found out again they were lying to me. It's like, really? What in the world? So I was really hurt then and really upset, and I wasn't there yet. I gave them one last shot. I actually made up this whole plan it was like my rescue plan for them, but it was based on them answering truthfully what I knew to be true. So I had them in my office and I sat them down and I said, I need you to answer this question for me. And it was a softball of a question. All you have to do is tell me the truth. And instead of telling me the truth, they made up an enormous lie that was so ridiculous that I, in that moment, lost hope. It's like, I have no more hope now. And again, what happens when you realize there's no reason for hope, you have to change tactics. In that case, I had to let that person go, and it was devastating. But the truth is, some of you need to get hopeless about what isn't going to work. You know what isn't going to work? Trying to talk to that person again one more time. This time I'm going to make my mom understand. She is going to understand. I'm going to make my teenage daughter understand, my teenage son understand. They are going to understand. I'm going to make my spouse understand. This is the time. How many times have you tried it in the past? 500 times. But this 501st time, this is going to be the time. Get hopeless about what isn't going to work. What's not going to work? You know the definition of insanity. All of you have heard it. It's doing the exact same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Right? That's insanity. If what you're doing always gets you this, what do you think doing more of it will get you? You've got to change your tactics. Change your tactics. Get hopeless about what isn't going to work. Second, build a support network. And again, so important. I've got this situation where, actually I was working with one of my kids recently on this very topic. They had had so many conversations with this other person in their life. I don't even know how many. And they'd done it all right, and they'd done all the skills, and it was always the same outcome. And so they finally got hopeless recently, and they changed tactics. And we worked together for a long time on what could be done differently. And some of you are going to need that. You know, when people are trying to escape from an abusive relationship, you know how hard that is? You need a support network around you. People that are going to help you get out of that. Picture what the future could be like. This is really important. Picture what the future could be like, because the future could be better. If you get an unhealthy, toxic person out of your life, it's going to hurt like crazy, and then it's going to get better. You know what happens to that pruned bush or that pruned tree? When you've pruned it, then it grows. I'm not saying it's easy. Please, if you hear me saying that any of this is easy, I am miscommunicating. It is painful. Especially when the person that you've got to kind of put some boundaries up with and change tactics towards is a family member who really hurts you. Do you have any controlling family members in your life? People who don't take no from you at all? Who come over your boundary? I mean, man, changing tactics is painful and hard, and you need support to be able to do it. But picture what it could be like if this wasn't a part of it, and then make a plan. What am I going to do? And this series we've been in, we've talked about boundaries. We did 2 weeks in this series. If you missed them, you can go online and watch them. We did 2 weeks on how to say no to somebody, and then how to enforce it once you've said it. Because many people just don't take your no. For some of you, this is a growth area. You've got to learn how to do this. You've got to make a plan that you're going to change your tactics. You know, there's so many possible things. Listen to this list, right? Some of you know that you need to change the tactics with one of your coworkers because it's just not working what you've been doing. Some of you need to change the way a dating relationship is working. Change the way finances are being handled or a business strategy, because it's not getting you the results that you want. There are people who need to end the pursuit of a specific element of their dream because it's not working. Or change jobs. Or even change careers. Because it's not what God even made you be. Some of you need to unplug from toxic friendships or family members. Or you need to, and this is really hard, put some space between you and somebody who's addicted because you care more about their addiction than they do. And that's just so painful. It's so difficult. And I'm not promising that if you do this, then everything will turn out perfect for you. I'm not. I know both sides of this. I've watched people put up boundaries with unhealthy people, and they lost the friendship, they lost the relationship. They don't even get to talk to them anymore. I've seen that. But I've also seen the other side. I saw a woman who was married to an alcoholic, and she just took it and took it and took it until she got some help and realized, I don't really have to take this anymore. And she worked with a counselor, and the counselor helped her change tactics. They got an intervention. She started having clear boundaries, what she will and will not accept in the home anymore, and enforcing them with very strict realities. This husband had done so much damage for so long. It's like, you don't get to do this to me and the kids anymore. Anymore. And in that case, it worked. It gave her what she really wanted, a sober husband and the opportunity for a real marriage. Because you don't get a real marriage with an addict. The addiction is by nature controlling. And she got that shot because she did this. She realized, I need to bring an ending to what I've been doing. Tough subject. Here's what I want you to have in your mind as we finish today. Dr. Cloud said, without the ability to end things, people stay stuck. Are you stuck? Stuck in a job you don't like? Stuck in relationships that are unhealthy for you? That are not helping you grow? What are you stuck in? Where are you frustrated? Some of you, it's a little easier. You just need to prune some things. Pruning things is easier than pruning people, right? Pruning things like, okay, some of you know, I need to cut back. I'm too busy. I've got so many things I've said yes to that I can't make the healthy things in my life really grow. I need to cut back. I need to prune some things out. Some of you, the harder things is pruning out in some way the unhealthy relationships that aren't working anymore. That's tough. You're going to need support. But I hope that if you take nothing else out here today, you know from this day forward how to discern whether it's a wish or a hope. Some of you really, really wish your marriage was healthier. You really wish things were better at your job. You really wish your relationships with your family were better. But it's just a wish. There's no objective reason to believe that it's going to be better. And without reasons, it's a wish. And when it's just a wish, you have to change. That's what you need to have in your head. One of the things that I find so interesting about this subject is Christianity doesn't begin until there's an ending. I find that fascinating. Christianity, the experience with God, doesn't begin until there's an ending. Did you know that? You will never experience God until you come to the end of yourself. And the end of the belief that you somehow can make yourself right with a perfect and holy God. So many people think that they're going to be okay with God and you ask them, are you going to get to heaven? Oh yeah, because I've been baptized and confirmed and I'm a good person and I do good things, and they give you this little list. And all of those people, the Bible says, they're going to miss it completely, because Christianity doesn't start till you come to the end of yourself and acknowledge the truth. You cannot make yourself perfect And to be with the Father in heaven, Jesus said, you have to be perfect. And none of us are. So Jesus came to pay for what's wrong in our lives. With his death on the cross, he paid for all of it. And any person that comes to him with that ending and says, I give up. I can't do it. I need you. At that moment of ending, you get God. You get his forgiveness and grace and love and life inside of you. And all the cool things in Christianity start at the moment you end. Let me have you bow your heads. Some of you really thought that your good deeds and your good religious things were going to get you into heaven or make you okay with God, and they won't. And today is a day of ending. If you will let go of that and turn to him, he will give you what you could never earn. With your head bowed, you can say something like this in your heart to him. Just cry out to him. He'll hear you in your heart. Just say, Jesus, I need to bring an ending. I give up thinking I can earn my way with you. I believe that you died for me. And I'm asking you to please forgive me. Come make yourself real to me. I want a new relationship with you. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, as we finish, I want to ask you to grab your connection card out of your program. Just take a moment and fill this out. Even if you're a regular tender, we ask for you to do this. Maybe you asked Jesus to forgive you. Just check this box, or you renewed your commitment. Some of you need prayer. And you don't have to tell us if you don't want to, but there's a section you can write down, just pray for me. Some of you have some big stuff that you need to bring an ending to, and you just need prayer. Just put that down and drop it in the offering box. We'll pray for you. If you're watching online, we have a little box in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you can just click that on our website and let us know how we can pray for you. So thanks so much for coming today. Hope to see you again next week.